Well, we have a new first for the channel today. This is my first television movie review. At least I can recall, that's my first. And it's, of course, Red Faction Origins. And I have to say, I was surprised by this. Let's face it, SyFy Channel original movie premiering on a Saturday is normally pterodactyls territory. This, though, looks like they were serious. Now, we'll get into why they probably took this one a little bit more serious. But just to get into it, this was good for what it was. I won't hold it up as, oh, it's better than X-Men First Class. No, it's not. It's not quite up to a major Hollywood blockbuster, or at least I'm not grading it on the same standards, because let's face it, there's some big Hollywood blockbusters out there that this is still better than. But even for video game movies, and I'm talking about some of the blockbuster ones, this is pretty damn good. Certainly better than a Yul Bao film, but less we talk about him, the better. But also, it's kind of unique among video game films in that it's actually canon with the games. There's really nothing you can complain about how it doesn't fit in with the games. Part of that is that the Red Faction video game franchise is, let's face it, suffers from ADD because it constantly changes what it is. The first and the second game, while both first-person shooters, very, very different in settings, the characters, where they take place. Then you have Guerrilla, Guerrilla is the important one to have played if you're watching this to get a lot of the stuff. They really based the entire game around Guerrilla. Alec Mason, the main character from that game, is back in this movie, played by Robert Patrick, who's really the only actor of note in this one. Everyone else is basically television actors, people from Stargate, people from Battlestar Galactica. Robert Patrick's the only one you'll probably recognize unless you're a fan of one of those particular series. But they take a lot of stuff from Guerrilla. I didn't play that much of Guerrilla. I played enough to know everything that was going on and to recognize stuff like the fighter that you see in this one, or some of the other crafts, which are, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually just took the model from the developer and then just up-tuned it a bit so it can be on a presentable to a degree on a television in a live-action film. Although they did take footage straight from the game and they put it on televisions, like playing in the bars, especially in the opening scene. And they realized that it really wouldn't pass while you have these CGI characters walking around, so they then made everything fuzzy. But I can't really think of any other video game movie that actually fits in with the actual canon. There's Resident Evil Degeneration, of course, but that's a CGI film. It's a little different than a live-action film. Other than that, I can't think of anything that's actually part of the canon. As for the film itself, it centers on Alec Mason's son, Jake, as he is a officer of, I guess, the Red Faction has now become the main military, or it's like a political party now. Of course, Red Faction from the get-go has always kind of used this communist imagery and ideals as like a selling point of being something different, and they continue that there. You really kind of have a feeling, like, the sense that the Soviet Union, to a degree, is the Red Faction, or the new Martian world. But they don't get into that too much. There's politics in the background. You're not sure how free it is. You're not sure if it is set up like Russian communism, where ostensibly there's an election held and all that, but everything's controlled by a party and by party elites. They don't really go into that. Probably a smart move, because you don't want to set up your heroes as basically working with the communists. But for criticism, there are plot criticisms, and this is where we're going to get into spoiler territories. I always try to hold off on spoilers until I get at least a few things out, for those of you that don't want stuff spoiled. From here on out, though, there's spoilers. At one point, Mars has been divided into two factions. There's the Red Faction colonists, and then there's Marauders, who work, without getting too much into their backstory, is another group, let's say, of a less civilized, but still organized group that both control about half of Mars, with like a little DMC, or DMZ, in between them. And there's increasing tensions. Jake believes he saw his long thought dead sister with a group of white soldiers when they went to go investigate or should I say white-clad soldiers, when they went to go investigate a crashing piece of a ship that was from the Guerrilla game. And so he decides to go into the DMZ, basically. Goes in, finds it, and discovers that there's a remnant of the Earth Defense Force operating out of a base, and their plan is to start a war between the two factions on Mars, and then afterwards they'll come in and rule the world, of course. And there's some big plot holes with them. You're kind of left unsure. Wait, these guys are EDF, but they're not being directed from Earth, but shouldn't, because they have. Well, here's what I have to get into. It's revealed that their base is actually a huge dreadnought. First of all, who buried this dreadnought? Because that would have been really useful to have in the ending of the other game if there was a second ship there. Yeah, we blew it up. Oh, there's another one. Well, guess the Earth wins. Really, I mean, it's not explained why there's a giant advanced ship buried in the surface of Mars. We know it's not like an alien ship. It's not going Total Recall there. No, it's an Earth ship. And these things aren't built on Mars. They're apparently built, back at Earth. I don't know why this has been buried in the sand since, the Earth government just left it there, and it was still being operated by Special Forces guys. You figure they would have some communication. They would be able to, because they've been basically waiting with this ship mostly buried for 25 years because they had to wait for a power cell to come back, and that before they could regenerate the ship or repower the ship. Why did they have to wait 25 years? Why couldn't they contact Earth? We have probes on Mars. We have satellites orbiting Mars, I think. If not, we've had them. We can communicate with Mars now. If we put something there, we can send radio signals back and forth. How come they can't do that? They have an advanced ship that can fly around. Even before it was fully powered, it still had power and stuff. It just couldn't fly. You figure they would be able to contact Earth, and Earth would be able to, send a dropship or something. They could have done a beeline. If all they needed was this power cell to get their operation going and to destroy everything, you figure they would just do it. So they're, I guess, they're like a third. I can buy it though that they're a third-party faction. They're not really operating as part of the Earth government or governments. That they're kind of went rogue themselves, and they are operating without official support. But you figure they would have made contact, or you figure in the movie they should have dropped that, where the leader. Now they might have, because I will have to admit, my attention was slightly divided as I was watching the Lord Cat stream, because they were doing their special Saturday night events. But I still was mostly watching this, and I got all the plot points. Maybe they dropped a line there at one point where the leader, the guy with the eye patch, I forget his name, said that Earth no longer wants to do this. They trade with Mars, but Mars should be put under our heels, or something along those lines. If they didn't do that, that's what they should have done. Just to make it clear, or at least go, Earth can't officially support us. They want plausible deniability, something along those lines. But apparently, at some point, Alex's daughter, way back, I guess recently after Revolution, was kidnapped by these guys because they dropped a line that they needed recruits. So, they were actually planning on sitting there for 20 years, and we're going to need soldiers for 20 years in the future. So we're gonna kidnap this 4-year-old girl, and I guess a few others, and train them as our soldiers. I mean, I guess I can't fault them for having long-term plans. You would have figured they would have, tried to think of something in the more immediate future, but because that's what they kidnap them for. They kidnap them so they can have soldiers in the future. It's not like they accelerated her growth or anything. I guess another. Well, this is more of a genre plot point, but they wind up acquiring two marauders, wind up joining them, or at least wind up joining Jake on his quest, and well, they go and help him. And first of all, they rather easily enter the big secured bunker. I don't know how they just snuck in. I can maybe assume that Jake had already killed the guards. I could have kind of bought that when they first entered, that there was a sentry, but at some point with this facility, I'm like, don't they have a surveillance camera? Put something outside so you can know who's entering your base or not. I mean, this thing is supposed to be an advanced spaceship. You would have figured it would have sensors that would have known exactly where everybody was. But these guys constantly are able to take out squads of elite soldiers with nothing more than sticks and daggers. Really, I mean, the first time it was like surprise. They jumped in on a group and they were already right in the middle for the melee. So you could kind of see why maybe the guys with the machine guns didn't win. But then later on, towards the end, they charged down a corridor at a full platoon. I don't know if it was a full platoon, but an entire group of these soldiers marching with their guns, and they should have just been slaughtered. They should have just, oh look, there's two guys charging at us. Gun aimed, dead. Even if they hit the first guys, you figure the two behind them and the two behind those guys 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 would have got a shot or two off at them. And probably would have been a little bit of a better ending. It's a pet peeve of mine when I see that. I know I shouldn't, because I like Commando, and he should have been killed multiple times in that movie, probably within the first 10 minutes. But don't take these criticisms too lightly. I do always have to pick something out that I spot, and especially when it's this. Overall, it was fairly good. The acting, for the most part, was decent, except for the end with Jake trying to give his speech about forming a new faction. The actor, though, really tanked it at that scene. I don't know if it was just a bad day of filming, but probably it might have just been the actor, too. The rest of the film, he seemed fine, but I think whatever his natural little actor stance is fit the character, I guess, because he's supposed to be kind of a mopey soldier type guy, not show a whole lot of emotion type thing. So I didn't notice it, but then at the end, as he's giving his speech about how the two different factions should reunite under his new faction, which will be called the name of the other faction and pretty much do everything what the other faction did, it's just that now they'll have Marauders join it. You kind of wonder why the Marauders would join it. You kind of wonder why they need it, since the only outside threat, at least from the perspective of this film, has been eliminated. As I said, it didn't seem like this EDF group actually had support from back on Earth, and if they did, it was only moral support because they let them sit there for 20 years without getting a power supply. If that was the case, then you pretty much know Earth isn't going to go and do anything. If that's all they were willing to do, was kind of just let a third party sit around on Mars until they could actually do something. But it was still much better for a free movie. I mean, everything else I've reviewed on this site, you normally are supposed to pay for. So you should be able to hold it up to a little bit of a higher standard. This one, it's on television. It's going to be on television all this weekend, the weekend that I'm recording this. It'll be on television again. And I might even go out and buy the DVD, if only to add to my Red Faction collection, because I do own the first and second games. I probably should go out and buy the third one. Well, maybe I'll download it on Steam. Who knows? But overall, it was worth it. It was a pretty good film. It was actually better than a lot of blockbusters, I hate to say. If you liked Priests, we're going by stuff I reviewed this. If you liked Priest, you should have at least the ability to like this. If you're if you're much more snobbish than that, maybe you won't like it. I know there's going to be a lot of people that won't like this film, but there will also be a lot who who can go, okay, it's a SyFy Channel movie. I know where to set my expectations, and I can enjoy myself. I fit into the latter category, and I enjoyed it. So that is my opinion, and I've rambled on for 15 minutes. More than enough for this film. Bye.